Welcome to this explainer where we are going to completely shatter the comforting illusion of solid ground. We're diving right into how the awe-inspiring, frankly ancient forces of nature dictate the realities of our local economies and our modern infrastructure. We usually just go about our days assuming the earth beneath our feet is this permanent, unchanging foundation. But the reality? We are literally just building our businesses and our lives on a very temporary window of geological stability. So let's actually kick things off with the concept of deep time. It's a really profound idea that was beautifully captured by the 18th century Scottish geologist James Hutton. When he looked at layered rock, it clicked for him. The Earth was ancient, way beyond human comprehension. And honestly, to truly understand the risks to our modern society, we have to kind of toss out our instinct to think in terms of human lifetimes or, quarterly business reports and start thinking in millions of years. 640,000 years. Just try to wrap your head around that number for a second. That represents the time since the last massive eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano. The Earth operates on a scale that just completely humbles human history. Right beneath the surface of Yellowstone lies a magma chamber roughly 90 kilometers long, and it's just been building pressure over millions of years. It's a pretty stark reminder that our planet is incredibly active, and it is entirely indifferent to the cities we've built on top of it.
Now, acknowledging deep time isn't meant to cause despair or make us feel totally helpless. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Understanding our temporary tenancy here on Earth gives us a really powerful window to proactively protect what we've built. It completely shifts our perspective from simple day-to-day management to true long-term resilience. Because look, we can't control the planet, no way, but we absolutely can control how we build upon it.
Section 1. The Disaster Cascade. Compound Chain Reactions. The thing you have to realize about modern catastrophes is that they simply aren't isolated events anymore. A single massive shock, like a huge earthquake or an extreme storm, rapidly cascades into a compounding domino effect. First, an extreme natural event takes out the power grid. That grid failure halts logistics and supply chains. And that supply chain collapse, it ultimately triggers a severe economic shockwave. Disasters interact, they compound, and they expose the fragility of our systems in ways we almost always fail to predict. Think about what keeps our society running. We rely heavily on aging electrical grids and overstressed water networks, all while depending on hyper-connected digital systems to run highly optimized but incredibly brittle supply chains. A disruption in literally any one of these areas can trigger multi-sector failures that will completely overwhelm our standard emergency responses. We've optimized for efficiency to maximize profit, but doing so often sacrifices the vital flexibility we need to survive a crisis.
Section 2. California Fault Lines. Inevitable Earthquakes.
History has given us a very clear timeline of warnings. We're talking about the devastating fires of the 1906 San Francisco quake, the collapsed freeways in Loma Prieta back in '89, the billions in damage from Northridge in '94, and the sudden economic shock of Napa in 2014. These are absolutely not anomalies. They are definitive proof that violent tectonic shifts are just a permanent, undeniable feature of the landscape. And when you look at the federal data on this, densely populated urban centers in California just completely dominate the nation's financial risk for annualized earthquake losses. Los Angeles alone is staring down over $1.3 billion, that's billion with a B, in projected annualized loss. Millions of people are living, commuting, and working right at the epicenter of risk, and often in structures that were simply not built to handle the violent ground movement we know for a fact is coming. The physical reality of this is incredibly harsh. When you see structures from the 1994 Northridge earthquake, where the concrete literally just gave way and pancaked, It shows exactly what happens when our engineered environments fail to withstand planetary forces. It's a sobering reminder that building codes we thought were safe decades ago are simply no match for the kind of violent shaking a major quake delivers.
Section 3. Economic Destruction. Hidden Shockwaves.
Now, the big one everyone always talks about, it's not just a physical crisis. Researchers project a major 7.8 earthquake would deliver a $225 billion blow to the local economy. But here's the crazy part. $80 billion of that is just from business interruption alone. Think about it. If people can't get to work and goods can't move down the highway, the entire economic engine just grinds to an absolute halt. And this burden falls so incredibly hard on small businesses. There was a case study following the 2014 Napa quake about a local coffee shop. The wild thing is, their building actually survived structurally. But because the buildings next door were severely damaged, the city closed their street for 16 solid months. Their foot traffic vanished. To keep the lights on after insurance claims were rejected, the owner had to drain their own personal savings to cover 70% of their recovery costs. But it gets worse because beyond just lost revenue, doing nothing to prepare your property actually invites massive legal liability. During the tragic 2003 Paso Robles earthquake, a building collapsed and 2 employees were crushed by falling bricks. A jury ultimately found the building owner negligent because they had previously received a retrofit order and chose not to act. That resulted in a $2 million judgment against them. It's a stark, uncomfortable reality. Smaller, single-location businesses are, without a doubt, the most vulnerable to being completely wiped out by these compound disasters. They just don't have the luxury of shifting their operations to a warehouse in a different state or relying on some massive corporate safety net. If their specific building fails or their specific street closes, their entire livelihood is instantly on the line. Section 4. ROI of Resilience. Smart Financial Math. The good news is, scientists and structural engineers have pinpointed 5 specific construction types as extreme collapse hazards. This isn't guesswork, it is proven science. Soft-story wood frames, unreinforced masonry, tilt-tops, non-ductile concrete, and older steel moment frames. If you own or operate a business out of one of these older structures, you are actively sitting on a massive, ticking physical and financial liability. Let's look at soft-story buildings for a second because you see these absolutely everywhere. They are usually apartment or commercial buildings with an open ground level, typically used for parking spots or large glass storefronts. While they are great for saving space, that open ground floor severely lacks the structural stiffness needed to absorb seismic energy. That makes them incredibly prone to snapping and pancaking under the weight of the upper floors during violent shaking. So when you actually weigh the risks, the contrast is like night and day. Doing nothing, that's a gamble that risks legal liability, the complete loss of your income, and eventually, massive demolition and rebuilding costs. On the flip side, the proactive choice of seismic retrofitting is undeniably the smartest economic strategy you can make. It preserves life, guarantees your business can actually stay open, and protects your property equity. And the sheer return on investment is staggering. Researchers at Caltech actually crunched the numbers and found that for every single dollar spent on retrofitting a soft-story structure, property owners save up to $7 in future losses, a 7-to-1 payoff. And honestly, that ratio doesn't even fully factor in the priceless value of preventing deaths or serious injuries. From a pure business perspective, mitigation pays massive, massive dividends. Section 5. Surviving Deep Time, Our Collective Future. Look, we cannot negotiate with a fault line. We can't ask a supervolcano to hold off for a few years. But we are far from helpless. We possess incredible scientific modeling and the advanced engineering tools to survey these risks and actually prepare our infrastructure. It is entirely within our power to engineer buildings and communities that bend during a disaster rather than break. Because ultimately, true resilience isn't just about pouring stronger concrete or bolting in steel beams. It is deeply about socially responsible preparation. Think about it. When a business retrofits its building, it protects its employees. When employees are safe and still getting paychecks, they can help their families. When families are secure, they reduce the immense strain on local emergency responders. It is this incredibly vital, interconnected web of societal protection. So knowing the awesome, truly humbling scale of nature and the brittle fragility of our modern systems, the responsibility falls squarely on us. What steps are you going to take today to secure your business, protect your investments, and fortify your community for tomorrow? Because the Earth is going to shift again. That is a geological guarantee, and our survival depends entirely on what we choose to do right now before the ground starts moving.